The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Thanks for joining again this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, joining you live from Dallas, Texas, which is home base for me. If you've not met me yet and you don't know me, I'm a management consultant, an organizational logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Elise Cortez and Associates help companies to enliven their operations by articulating their purpose and building inspirational leaders and cultures activated by meaning and purpose to turn those companies from a flatline EKG to a vibrant workplace. There, people are intrinsically motivated to perform at their best, grow to their fuller potential, and are committed to stay and help deliver on the company's mission. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at elisecortez.com. Now, getting into today's program, with us is Dr. Sheila Ohlsson, who is a behavioral geneticist. She is a senior scientist at the Institute for Applied Research in Youth at Tufts University, a visiting assistant professor at the Johns Hopkins University School of Education, and an adjunct assistant professor of pediatrics at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. She's slightly an overachiever, in other words. We'll be talking today about the book she co-authored with Dr. Jim Loehr called Wise Decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. She joins us today from Inglewood, Colorado. Dr. Ohlsson, welcome to Working on Purpose.
It's a delight to be here. Thank you so much. Grateful.
So welcome. And I'm so happy. You know, I want to commend you and Jim for this beautiful book. I have this really weird thing that I do, Sheila, is I read my guest books cover to cover in preparation for the show.
That's so lovely. Not everybody does that.
I know that. I've heard that a million times, or at least maybe 400 times. But the reason I do that, Sheila, is because this show is my catalyzing force to continue my own growth, expansion, and development, so I can be a better service to the people that I serve. And I want you to know that I got some really powerful things from your book, not the least of which really recognizing who in the heck, what inner voice am I listening to? Because it wasn't mine. I recognized, I went, oh no wonder. So I want to say thank you for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let's kick this off here. I really, what I like to do on the show here is, as you could tell from some of the notes I sent you ahead of time, is I like to kind of engage over some of the content that really spoke to me, because the show is curated. So we kind of build on what we've already discussed over the last 8 years we've been doing this. So I want to start with how you opened the book. You say, because so much is writing on the decisions we make throughout life, putting the decision-making process under a microscope with the intent of better understanding how wise decisions are made represents the central focus of this book. Sounds good to me. And it really, I was sobered by that remark, thinking about the sheer number of decisions that we make and, to your point, how they completely influence the quality and results of our lives.
Yes. And there are the micro decisions and the macro decisions, and the micro decisions lead into the macro decisions. That deciding what we have for breakfast, or how to manage a small moment at home, deciding whether to exercise in the morning, can make a difference in our mood state because of our biochemistry and so forth, and how we intentionally act or reactively react to situations that happen throughout the course of the day. So it's cumulative, it all adds up. And that's an important thing to know. And Jim, who unfortunately can't be here, he's one of the most wonderful human beings on planet Earth. And he's been honestly my most important teacher and mentor. Kind of post academia, he's helped me bring my behavioral genetic, my neurobiological science research that people have a hard time reading with 10 syllable words that narcolepsy bring it to people to help people change their lives, how they think, how they behave, the lives of their children. That's my particular space, is early, childhood development, and because there's tremendous opportunity in that chapter of life to really create habits and patterns that stick. So decision making is an area that has not been, thoroughly illuminated. There's business decision making. There are lots of books in that space, but in terms of personal decision making, that was really an area that was ripe to go into and just really take the process out of the closet and into the light and examine the pieces that go into it. And so this was the genesis of the book, was really thinking about what can we write together that is just organically emanates from conversations we normally have about people and the meaning they make, and of events in their lives, growth mindset. And then Jim's work with 17 world #1 athletes and his, starting the Johnson & Johnson Human Performance Institute. How can we be our very, very best selves, and what are the steps to get there? So we hope to create a process and a framework in this book to help make that happen, and just make it clear and have some clear steps and written exercises in the workbook elements of the book to help people really to take time to be intentional about thinking through things. Because if we don't know where we want to go, we're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And we are definitely going to get to the place where we talk through your formula, your process, because, and that'll be, just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be in the third segment. So hang with us for that. So, it's very interesting to me what you talk about here when you say that, we human beings, there are a few things that get in the way of us making good, constructive decisions that produce, the quality of lives and the results that we want. Can you say a few about what are some of the things that hamper us in the way of making good decisions?
The things that hamper us are, multifold. There's the automatic element of decision making. We just do things that we've seen the adults in our lives do over time. We learn. There's a wonderful quote: "Don't worry that your children aren't listening to you. Worry that they're always watching you." So us adults, when we were children, we're watching the adults in our lives, whether our parents or grandparents or the important adult figures in our lives, and how they acted and reacted to situations going on. And we, through epigenetics, nature operates via nurture. The things that we see, the things that we take in, really become a part of our behavioral code, our behavioral patterns. So as we wire up our decision-making processes, they're not necessarily intentional. I don't know if you had a parent or anyone who talked to you about your decision-making process when you were a child or a young adult or even your 20s or 30s. Whereas just to be aware that we're making decisions is, that's really the starting point. But the other piece is our brains are fiction-making machines. We tell ourselves the stories that we want to hear and tend to make decisions that align with those stories that validate our stories and validate the decision we want to make in the first place. And so this kind of confirmation bias, wanting to go in the direction anyway, and then finding the things that validate that decision and provide a data set for that decision. That's probably those are the two most important elements that we wrote about. And so again, it requires taking a step back to think about things through a broader lens to really unpack some of those elements, the childhood element, but also, the things that what do we think we want versus what do we really want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did a beautiful job of really detailing that in the book, by the way. So encourage our listeners and viewers to, when they go to get the book, to really give that a hard read, because I thought it was very, very discerning, very delineating. And then what I also appreciated, this really started to really make me understand the import of your book, Sheila. You wrote, "The whole point of decision making at all levels is to continually fine tune and fortify the process so that our lives increasingly represent who we most want to be in life. Wise decision making sets the stage for us to authentically and powerfully embody the way in which we show up in the world." That is so powerful.
Thank you. And it's, you look at the science. I'm a behavioral geneticist. My PhD was on a big twin study looking at how nature and nurture operate together. And it's always nature via nurture. It's not nature versus nurture. It's the experiences that we have, the environments we're in, shape how we become and how we become who we become. And we're 24/7, 365 day a year work in process on this front. So this fine tuning element is vital, because we're not just sort of stuck with a set of DNA when we're going to have a a kind of defined range of scope in our life. We have possibility to expand in the directions that really, where our energy is the most vital and vibrant. When we move in that direction, we grow, we change our mindsets, we change our behavior, we change all of those things. So, and in creating new ways of making decisions and patterns, it's really about behavior change and creating new habits. And that takes repetition, because, trying on, something for size, a new workout routine, let's just say, something to make it simple. It doesn't, our muscles don't grow after one day in the gym. We have to go for, at least a few months, but we start feeling the effects earlier than that. But to make behavior change, to create behavior change and mindset change that sticks, it takes a longer period of time and intentionality, which is why we have the workbook elements in the book, because when we write things down with our hand on a piece of paper, it really does engage the whole brain, the default mode network, the executive function. It helps us integrate things in a more holistic way. And just on that fine tuning element, one thing that I have done over time, this is in all the habit literature, have cues. Cues are really, really important to remember things. So sticky notes about your Y.O.D.A code, which we'll get into, your own decision advisor, have reminders around that help you remember and dock onto concepts that are important for you to be your very best self, to ground yourself in a moment where it may be a little bit heated. Breathe. You are just where you need to be right now. I have that on the back door going out of the door. But it is, we don't have control over a lot of things in life. Things happen, and they can't happen randomly, and they may hit us sideways like a tidal wave. But we do have the choice about how we react to them. And when we can ground ourselves in breath and be where our feet are and decide to act rather than react, in that pause, is Viktor Frankl, I'm sure you've read Man's Search for Meaning. The power of the pause, that's where our freedom lies. We can make a decision in that power of the pause, but we don't do that. We just instinctively react and jump back out at something that we haven't really had a moment to process.
Beautifully rendered. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to get into, which I think is delightful, one of the many delightful things about your book, of course, is your concept of our Y.O.D.A, which is, of course, your own decision advisor. And I appreciate you started talking about that already, but maybe this is a time if you could kind of introduce the Y.O.D.A concept to us.
Sure. So inside of all of us, we have a private inner voice. This is the voice that is the most powerful of all of the elements of who we are. This is the voice that can either be a powerful coach, or it can be a really powerful adversary. Ally or adversary are the two kind of key terms. But we can the stories we tell ourselves about things that happen, and the messages that come through our minds, even in the nanosecond, an instant flash, can shape how we look at things. So, rumination, for instance, that always brings us at whatever age and stage down a rabbit hole. Being able to have that voice and train that voice, which is possible because of the science that we just talked about. Be a coach who tells you, breathe, slow down, take a moment, step back, reframe, and really give us the capacity to provide objectivity in inner stories that often get wildly subjective and caught up in moods and caught up in things that aren't even nearly the truth.
Right.
And so it's very easy for that to happen. But the problem is when that happens inside of us, it affects our mood state, our stress levels. At Johns Hopkins, my major focus was stress and what happens, chronic stress, particularly over time. But stress, cortisol, narrows the purview. It keeps us in this kind of locked lane. And when the stress response happens, that is typically with rumination or with kind of negative thinking, or not giving ourselves space to really think broadly through this kind of 360-degree lens. We get locked into stories that are negative and that are deleterious to us, to our biochemistry, to our mood, to our gene expression patterns, to how we operate, and that's the problem. So, but that on the flip side, the positive element is that we have the capacity, and science tells us this, that with repetition and training and intentionality, we can make that inner voice into a force of good for us, a force that builds us up, that helps us, be kind with ourselves, give ourselves grace, have a growth mindset, give ourselves space to unpack things, not feel like we're stuck and hopeless because we made one bad decision. And by the way, we all make bad decisions.
Right. A series of them sometimes.
And so, the most important thing is to learn. And for parents, talk about that with your children. I've got 3 boys, 20, 18, and 16. And we really just try to talk about the things that we do well and the things that we haven't done well. I think it's particularly important for adults to just be human with their children and talk about, maybe, what went wrong, why, how would I have thought about this differently sitting where I am right now. It's equally as important to talk about the bad decisions and the good decisions, but we learn over time. It's like shaping our clay and molding our clay through the science of epigenetics and building those neural pathways that become the default mode for us.
Oh, so much there, Sheila. Let's grab our first break. I want to let our listeners and viewers just kind of think about what you've said so far around Y.O.D.A and kind of where we make decisions from, how they can actually impact the quality of our lives. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on air with Dr. Sheila Ohlsson. She's the co-author of Wise Decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. We've been talking about some of the foundational elements of her work and in the book. After the break, we're going to get into first the 4 literacies of decision making. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us. Before we get back to the program, I do want to share with you some exciting news here, which is I've been talking about for a bit now. We launched the Purpose and Joy Tour in March of this year. This is a collaboration with Y.O.D.A, an organization that teaches mindful practices to build happy, healthy, resilient worlds, and my firm, Elise Cortez and Associates, that activates meaning and purpose in company culture and leadership to increase fulfillment, performance, and retention. Together, we cracked this crazy idea to visit 33 cities across the United States, starting in March and finishing Virginia Beach in October, to find our tribe and of people that actually want to elevate their lives and their businesses by cultivating meaning, purpose, and joy. So you can find our list of cities and our planned events at gusto-now.com. Events, there's a tour tab there with all the cities delineated. So check out what we have planned for you, reserve it on your calendar and register, and we will see you there. If you're just now joining the program today, my guest is Dr. Sheila Ohlsson, who is a behavioral geneticist. She is a senior scientist at the Institute for Applied Research in Youth at Tufts University, a visiting assistant professor at the Johns Hopkins University School of Education, and an adjunct assistant professor of pediatrics at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So I want to talk more now, if we can. I want to dig into, there were so many elements of your book that I just thought gave me so much more around this notion of decision making. One of them is you talk about there's 4 literacies to decision making. If you could talk about each one of them kind of briefly and the buckets that are under each, I think that will help our listeners and viewers really understand just how much goes into this.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So our chapter 1 of the book is called Health Ignites Wise Decision Making. And that's because when we are not healthy, either mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, and spiritually we define as our highest order values and beliefs, we can't make the decisions we want to look back on and feel that we're proud of over the long game of life. So it's important to be, and I'll break down all these different 4 buckets, but it's one important thing to say up front is that these 4 buckets are all integrated. Below the skin, the same molecules that are affecting mental health or affecting physical health, our emotions, they all interact. So we can't think of them as discrete buckets. It's a really integrative mind-body system. But starting with the most basic, our physical health, our physical literacy, being physically active and doing something with our bodies every day. We're mammals. We were built to move our bodies in order to use our brains properly. And so doing something physically active every day stimulates this powerful exercise biochemistry that boosts mood, health, creativity, decreases inflammatory factors. It does all of these things that, that's more powerful than things that we go to the drugstore to get. So doing something physically active, whatever it is for you, or you can engage and is very, very important. Mental literacy is really about doing our work to be able to have a growth mindset, which means meaning making in the appropriate way. There's a ton of literature on meaning making, and it is not the events in our lives themselves that make a difference in how they resonate with us. It's the meaning we make out of them.
Yes.
So when we look at an event and decide, oh my goodness, it's a catastrophe, it's never going to be the same, my life is over, that is going to, that brings on cortisol, that brings on inflammatory factors, it brings on these biochemical elements that just suck us down into the rabbit hole. We can also look at the very same event as, boy, that was awful, but you know what? I'm going to learn from it. And I would do this differently next time around, or what can I do at this point now to take some little piece of that and make my life better, make the life of someone else better. So the meaning making piece is massive, and studies show, my dear friend Mary Helen Imardino Yang at USC has done a lot of work on adolescence and meaning making and what that means later on in life. And the ones who are able to make adaptive, positive meaning, as you can imagine, their health is better, their decisions are better, they have better outcomes across the board. It's making adaptive meaning of situations, whatever they are, is incredibly important. So that's mental literacy. Emotional literacy is being emotionally intelligent, knowing how to recognize our own emotions, understand them, put a label on them, and express them and regulate them. This is, a lot of the work of my friend Mark Brack at Yale School of Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence is in this book. He's mentioned several times, but he's in, several 4,000 schools across the country, helping adults and young people understand what their emotions are, because basically our emotions are the palette, they're the canvas that is primed, that all of our cognitive thoughts and ideas and actions and reactions, it's all, they all stem from this basis of our emotional beings. And our emotions are not just these sort of fluffy things, they're data, and they're the first things that wire up in our mind body systems as infants, as young people. And our emotions really come directly from our viscera and our organ systems, and they project up. The outside expression of our emotions is our feelings. So being able to understand what those are, and it's, it's not a good idea to make a big decision when we're either really emotionally up or really emotionally down. And being able to understand that, maybe I need to make this decision, it's not the right time. Maybe I write it down as something that I need to think about, but at a different time. That's emotional literacy. And then spiritual literacy is really this our highest and our most important values and beliefs about what is important in life and how we want to show up. And that's really the big driver.
Yeah.
That's the gas that comes from the inside.
That's my jam. Yeah.
Intrinsic motivation. Jim is very well known. He was actually the first, he published something in the Harvard Business Review decades ago with the pyramid of spiritual literacy is on the top. And then it goes mental, emotional, and physical at the bottom. And so if we develop from the bottom up, we become extraordinary from the top down, because it is the spiritual dimension and those big values and those most important beliefs of ours are the things that keep us going over time, the things we care about the most and believe in. And so this hooks back into our Y.O.D.A, which is if you look in our book, there's a figure with all of these dimensions with Y.O.D.A right in the middle, your own advisor. So if we want to make good decisions, really being emotionally literate, mentally and physically, and then spiritually, really thinking about all of these dimensions and what they are for us, what we do, where we can fine tune. We can bring those right down into the middle, and then we have our, your own decision advisor, Y.O.D.A, which is a superpower like none others. And just as a behavioral geneticist and mom of boys, when we wire up these skills and these thought patterns and these behaviors as automatic in young people, this is just a superpower they'll have for the rest of their lives. It'll pay the biggest dividends. And we're learning across life. And we never stop learning and growing at any age or stage, but it's particularly powerful in young people, and particularly with all the things going on in their lives right now that we never had to face. Social media, and it's a very different world that they're navigating versus us. But when we have, we know who we are at the core, and can recognize decisions and stay healthy and keep our eye on the things that are important, it really it takes a lot of the pressure off and helps navigate what can be an otherwise very tricky course.
Yes, well said. I of course, I can't argue with anything that you say. I align completely with that. And then, if we now going back from, these 4 dimensions here, now if you would just very briefly, because I want people to be able to go and do this stuff in the book here. But I think one of the things that I really got a lot of value from your book too was equipping the Y.O.D.A with the right stuff here, using the vetting process. And you talk about how the decision-making process can be greatly improved when viewed through 7 lenses. And then of course you have some very distinctive, prompts in your book and worksheets in your book to be able to help the reader to do that. But if you would just go through each of the 7 lenses, that would be great, just kind of what they are, and then I want to keep building on that.
Right. Well, so just to start off, the 7 lenses, there's a lot of overlap in the 7 lenses, and you'll see this as I read through the list. But we have the first lens is the best self, best moral self, our life's purpose, our tombstone legacy, how we want to be remembered by those who knew us the best and loved us the most, our core values and beliefs, our personal credo, and our ultimate mission in life. And so, as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of overlap, but taking the time to just pick up a pen and a piece of paper and write down, if you're facing particularly a big decision, thinking about it through all of these lenses and thinking about it not only in terms of how it will affect us and our lives, but also the lives of those that we're closest to. What's the ripple effect out of our decision? But it really gets back to, the end game here is to make the kinds of decisions that at the very end of our lives, the tombstone legacy is representative of this one, that we're going to look back on and be proud of. And we can't have full information up front. We can make a decision one day and then something happens the next day that materially changes, what we would have done. We can only do the best that we can at the time. And when we keep those higher order elements in mind of who we want to be, how we want to show up, how do we want to leave the world? What do we really want to teach our children? What's the legacy we want to leave behind? Why are we here? What's our purpose here on earth? Those are the things that, if you look at the wisdom literature and the writings of 80, 90, 100 centenarians, we talk about, I had X number of zeros in my bank account and I had a beautiful jet and all these vacation homes. It's really about the connection with people, the people that they love, that both the elements of joy that they remember and regrets are around, being there or not being there, showing up in the way they wanted to, not showing up in the way they wanted to. So kind of going forward out into the future and then backward mapping to where we are now to think about, what are these things that we care about the most? What is this decision going to look like? How is it going to feel in a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years? And going through the process of just writing down what these things are just helps us take it out of our minds and out onto paper where we can really legitimately process it in a different way. One thing that is not in here that I have found incredibly valuable too is thinking about the people that I rely on for they're my role models for making good decisions. I value how they operate in the world, and I have a go-to my Y.O.D.A advisory board or something along those lines. But I've got a handful of people that I know I'm going to get heartfelt, thoughtful, intelligent perspective from them that I can take into my own body of knowledge and integrate in to really think about it in the right way, because it's hard to think about everything at once. Even if we know a lot, it's hard to, it's hard to have the perspective that gives us the ability to have the spaciousness to be able to really think broadly about particularly big decisions. So having a team of people is very important.
Yes. And I think I really got so much about that whole perspective, those 7 lenses. That was very powerful for me. And what you were just speaking to there to me, Sheila, I wanted to be able to read this beautiful passage because I think it really speaks to what you were just getting at there. You said in the book, humanity's greatest asset is its capacity for the kind of deep reflective consciousness that gives rise to personal transformation. It is the capacity to be aware that one is aware, to be conscious of what one is thinking or saying, both privately and publicly, and to be fully conscious of one's own awareness. Reflective consciousness is the essential difference that separates humans from all other species.
Yes.
That's what I think you were really speaking to there, that capacity to be able to reflect on that level.
We have that capacity, but it takes stopping. We run around, we rush around our lives, doing things and stopping to be human beings and feeling, instead of taking a break from human doing and getting into human being to think and reflect. That helps us really consolidate all these different levels of intellectual, emotional, psychological, physical pieces of who we are, who we want to be. It just stopping and thinking and reflecting is vital to being able to grow and learn. I'm curious, Elise, so the 7 lens process for you, forgive me for asking a question, but how did that help you think about the decision-making process differently than you had previously?
But because it really made me get present to this, this reflective consciousness. And, if I think about, well, who do I really want to be in the world? How do I want to leave this world? Boy, when you take your lens up from that versus, what am I freaked out about now? Or what's today? What's the problem today? Or, or what's this person care about? Or what's happening with this client or whatever. When I take the lens and I elevate it, I like to use that, the elevational piece. To me, that just went, gosh. In fact, I will tell you even now, Sheila, I had a conversation just today with someone in a very different way. I chose to behave in a different way, in part because of your book. And I said, because this is the person I want to be. I want to be this more higher functioning, capable, better relationship, better results person. Thank you. That's what you gave me.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And it's that's why Jim and I wrote the book. We just want to help.
I got it. And it's beautiful. So listeners and viewers, you might want to check it out while we go on this next break here. Go to Amazon, check it out. It's time for our last break here. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Dr. Sheila Ohlsson. She's the co-author of Wise Decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. We've been talking a bit about some of the meat of the book that really gives it its value and flavor. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I mentioned in the last break that we've launched this Purpose and Joy Tour. The two latest books that I have that are part of that tour are The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business. And this is for leaders to learn how to build elevating and high-performing cultures in leadership. The other latest book is called Coloring Life, How Loss Invites Us to Live More Vibrant Lives, which helps people navigating loss, transform it to growth and vitality. You can find them both on Amazon. If you're just now joining us, my guest is Dr. Sheila Ohlsson. She's a behavioral geneticist and the co-author of Wise Decisions, a science-based approach to making better choices. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So for this last bit here, I wanted just to get into some of the ways that the applications and exercises that you have in the book here to kind of give listeners and viewers a taste. And I was very, very intrigued with your tombstone exercise. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Absolutely. The tombstone exercise relates back to what we were just talking about in the previous segment about who we want to be. So if we can forward map, look out into the future, decades, and think about what do we want written on our tombstone? How do we want to show up? What are those things that we most want to convey to the people who loved us the most and know us the best? What's really important? And it's not the things that we often feel, that our society is often chasing in this world. It's the basic things grounded in human relationships, love, purpose, making our world a better place. That's like the meat and potatoes from an evolutionary standpoint, how we've survived as human beings, not going it alone, but with this notion of collective efficacy, where 1 + 1 = 3, stronger together than apart. And so the tombstone legacy, and I've been working with some high school students, actually teaching a class based on this book, and it's been fascinating to work with them, these incredible young people who are thinking about what these things are early on in life, when many adults haven't really unpacked these things. They're sort of going through their lives doing and reacting, but not with the intentionality that we need to make sure that tombstone legacy is what we want it to be, because time is our asset, and the energy that we are able to deploy into the things that we care about, that's, it's priceless. So that's the tombstone legacy, just going out in the forward so we can backward map to make sure that we're on the right route, that our nav system is set to the right destination, and we can course correct along the way as needed.
Mm-hmm. Not too far off maybe from what we were speaking about before the other break, but beautifully well illustrated. And I love that you're working with youth, by the way. I also do work with youth on strengths finding and also meaning and purpose too. It's so fulfilling, and it's really necessary.
It's beautiful.
It is. And I think it's incredibly necessary, right? Just incredibly necessary. So I wanted to see if you would also just share just a few of the points from the summary wisdom from Y.O.D.A. There's in the last chapter, I think there's like 37 points or something crazy like that. So jam-packed with value. But maybe just a few that really speak to you.
Around the details around Y.O.D.A? Around
the summary wisdom, just some of those details that we haven't talked about so far on the show.
Yeah, I mean, the summary wisdom is it doesn't matter if we get to the top of a mountain, if we have to climb over dead bodies on the way up, it's really about who we are as people, being kind to other people, how we treat other people, um, shapes how other people treat us, and it shapes our story and our mood and everything that extends from that. So, and it starts with also being kind to ourselves. The summary wisdom, was really in the first chapter around the health piece. If we're not kind to ourselves, if we don't take care of ourselves, nurture our bodies as the vehicles that take us around life, nurture our minds and our souls and our emotions, we can't give ourselves the spaciousness nor the grace needed to really navigate life successfully. And relative to Y.O.D.A, there are three basic things that if we look at all the literature over time on brain health, and brain health is of course correlate. You can't take mind, body health and put them separately because they both interrelate and they shape one another. But there are three major factors that help us do better with what we have from a biological standpoint over time. One is doing something physically active every day. That exercise biochemistry boosts everything, not only health and mood, but creativity and innovation and all the things that matter. Having friends, connected, doubling down on our people, surrounding ourselves with people who feel like sunlight, who support us. That's incredibly important as well. There's a biochemical story to that too, related to oxytocin, but having a reliable, strong friend group that supports us and is there for us. I want to throw this in. The Surgeon General just came out with a report a couple of weeks ago, initiative on loneliness and isolation, and the health risk of loneliness and isolation is massive. And with any age or stage, again, and social media exacerbates that. But particularly as we grow older, making sure that we have the people around who are supporting us in the way that we can rely on. So exercise, friends. And the third one gets around to kind of the whole premise of this book around purpose. And when we're purpose, having something bigger than ourselves to get out of bed for every morning, something that's motivating from the inside, that keys off that spiritual dimension. What do we want to do? How do we want to show up? What do we care about? And connecting with other people around that shared system of values and beliefs, having a bigger purpose than us, it's a motivating factor like none else. And so when we get that recipe right, do something active, stay active, take care of ourselves, take care of our friends, or nurture those friendships that nurture us, and double down on purpose. That's the recipe for success in life. And success that is not success measured in bank account, it's so much bigger than that. It's not quantifiable.
Completely agree, 100%. And I certainly did want to hear you. I love that you asked me the question of how your book and the material has impacted my life. But I would also love to hear another example of someone maybe who's used this material and how it's improved their lives, if you have an example.
Well, I'm trying to think. I've got a handful of different examples. I'm going to go to my students, actually, because adults that I've spoken with, they've thought about the health piece and really doubled down on thinking about their Y.O.D.A codes and what is really important. For the young people that I've worked with, just at this sensitive period in development, the childhood and adolescence are the periods in brain and body development that are where new habits are the likeliest to stick for life and just become these automatic habits, just like brushing our teeth or driving a car. We do them without even thinking about it. So to sit with these amazing young people who have taken the time to do the writing, do the reflective processes, to think about their lives, things that have gone well, things that haven't gone well, what they want to do, helping them not craft their Y.O.D.A codes, but just helping them reinforce the importance of their Y.O.D.A codes around their purpose. That has been so expansive for me because I feel like it has just amplified human potential in this way that will illuminate not only them, but all the others who they go out and touch. They're all headed off to, they're juniors and seniors. Most of them are heading off to college next year, but many of them are doing projects based on the book. They've written curriculum. They've done sports coaching manuals. They've done different things that are going to have an impact in a way that is so desperately needed at this time. And, I'm 57 years old. I love my work. I was in finance beforehand. I was a portfolio manager. I did a whole different set of things, and I changed courses 20 plus years ago. And I love what I do, and I love the people I do it with. And so people are really good when they do what they love and love what they do. That doesn't mean loving what you do isn't hard sometimes and challenging.
Right.
And, it should be hard, because hard is fun. Hard is fun also. We get through challenges and we grow from it. But seeing these young people taking the ball and running with it and phrasing things in their own way that makes sense for them, but holding the principles and the basics intact, boy, it just makes my heart just wants to,
Isn't it great? I know, to live on that in that space is pretty great. I love it too. So, well, it's amazing how fast this show goes. The show is listened to by people around the world, Sheila, and most people that listen to it are listening to the topic that, of course, they've chosen to opt into, or there are people that really are out to create a culture in the workplace where people actually want to show up, give their best, and stay, and create those leaders that lead us to our greatness. We do business that betters the world. What would you like to leave our listeners and viewers with?
Go shine your light. Go double down on your Y.O.D.A code. Take care of yourself. Those are the two main things. Take care of yourself. Don't feel guilty about it. Prioritize it, and sit back and really think about your Y.O.D.A code. Those 5 or 6 words that describe who you want to be and how you want to leave those around you feeling, and then go out and just unabashedly shine your light.
That sounds good to me, Sheila. I thank you so much for coming into my world, for writing this book, for coming on the air with me and sharing with it. It's been a delight to get to know you and share your work. Thanks for being on Working on Purpose.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be on today, and I appreciate you, Elise, for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I'm so glad to know you. One thing that happens sometimes, Sheila, is when I connect with my guests, sometimes they get a knock on their door when I'm actually in their city. So beware.
My door is open anytime.
Okay, good. Listeners, viewers, if you want to learn more about this remarkable woman, Dr. Sheila Ohlsson, the work she does centering how nurture environment shapes nature, which is DNA, and how we can create context in sport, at school, and nature settings that unlock the potential of our youth, start by visiting her website. It's www.SheilaOhlssonWalker.com. Let me spell that for you. So Sheila, Sheila, Ohlsson is OHLSSON, and then Walker, WALKER. SheilaOhlssonWalker.com. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it via recorded podcast. We were on the air with Dr. John Schinnerer, the host of the Evolved Caveman podcast, talking about the work he does to coach men to greater connection, happiness, and success. Some really amazing pearls in that conversation. Very, very illuminating and enlightening stuff. Next week, we'll be on the air with Kent Gregoire, hearing about his perspective on stakeholder capitalism. See you there. Remember that work is an integral and important part of our lives and can be one of the best adventures and means of realizing our potential and making the impact we crave. So let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune in to Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.